So till which section did we cover yesterday? कल कौन से सेक्शन तक कवर किया था? (43, 46, 47 and 48. Correct. So now today we are going to start with section 49. अभी section 49 जो बात करता है, section 49 it basically talks about calls on the shares. Give me a minute. Yeah. So section 49 it talks about calls on shares, calls to be made on shares. Now when we talk of calls to be made on share, इसका मतलब क्या है? हम किस बारे में रेफर कर रहे हैं? So what usually happens is, whenever, say for example, a company has issued equity shares. Now say the price of the share is ₹100 per share. Abhi now this 100 rupees, they are not called up or this 100 rupees are not paid at a time to the company. जब subscription होता है, public offer होता है, तो ये 100 rupees जो है एक साथ नहीं पे किए जाते. अलग-अलग amounts में this amount is divided. Now say for example 30 rupees was paid on application. Another 30 rupees on say allotment. Then 20 rupees was the first call. And another 20 rupees second and final call. So in this manner, the calls are divided, or the manner in which the amount has to be received on a share of the company is divided. अभी जब हम बात करते हैं about calls to be made on share, अभी whenever if a company wants this 20 rupees, say application हो गया, application पे 30 रुपए आ गए, allotment जब किया शेयर का तब 30 rupees आ गए. Now company जब call करेगी उसके बाद ही company को ये 20 rupees मिलेंगे. But obvious, if I have purchased some shares in the company and I've paid application money, I've also paid money on allotment of shares. Now, whenever company demands these 20 rupees from me, I'll pay this amount to the company. So the company will have to first make a call. Company को पैसा चाहिए, तो company को पहले call करना पड़ेगा. The company will have to first make a call, and only then the company will be entitled to receive the money. Now, when we are talking of calls to be made by a company, section 49 ये बोलता है that a company should make uniform calls. अभी uniform calls का मतलब क्या होता है? उसके लिए we will first understand what are different classes of shares. Now, say for example, there's a company which has issued class A equity shares. The nominal value of each share here, that is the face value of each share here, is 100 rupees. And the amount which is paid up is say ₹70 per share. So nominal value, that is the face value of each share of class A equity shares, is ₹100, and the amount which is paid up on all these shares is say ₹70. And there are say 2000 class A equity shares which are issued by this company. And इसके अलावा कंपनी ने और 1000 shares issue करे. These are also normal equity shares with normal voting rights. These are class B equity shares. Now, what is the difference? The nominal value here is also ₹100, but the paid up value here is say ₹50. ₹50 has been paid up. So we say that shares belong to the same class when they have the same nominal value and the same paid up value. अगर नॉमिनल वैल्यू या पेड अप वैल्यू में से कुछ भी एक डिफरेंट हुआ तो हम बोलेंगे ये दोनों डिफरेंट क्लास के शेयर्स है. सो व्हेनेवर, नाउ से फॉर एग्जांपल, अभी ये जो 2000 शेयर्स है कंपनी के, इस पे हाउ मच इज पेड अप? 70 rupees इज पेड अप. नाउ द कंपनी वांट्स द रिमेनिंग 30 rupees ऑन ऑल दीज 2000 शेयर्स. Now say out of these 2000 shares, 1000 out of these 2000 shares, 100 shares are held by a person, Mr. Ravi. Mr. Ravi एक इंसान है who is a relative, who is a very good friend of the director of the company, and he holds 100 shares in this company. अभी कंपनी फाइनल कॉल कर रही है ऑफ ₹30. सो ऐसा होगा क्या कि 1900 मेंबर्स के लिए ₹30 का फाइनल कॉल जाएगा, और रवि क्योंकि बिकॉज ही इज फ्रेंड ऑफ द डायरेक्टर ऑफ द कंपनी, द कॉल अमाउंट विच विल बी मेड फॉर मिस्टर रवि, इट विल बी डिफरेंट. Do you think Ravi से सिर्फ ₹15 बुलवाएंगे? Ravi will be asked to pay only ₹15, and the remaining shareholders, they'll be asked to pay ₹30. Do you think a company can do any such type of arrangement, or any such type of call can be made by the company? Definitely not. Company as a bhedbhav, or company cannot do this kind of partiality wherein the company would say that I will call different amounts from different shareholders of the same class of shares. That is not allowed. So whenever a company is making a call, for a particular class of shares, the company has to make a uniform call. Uniform call का मतलब होता है कि same amount का call करेगी company. अगर ₹30 का कॉल हो रहा है, so this ₹30 will be for this entire 2000 shares, and not only say 1000 shares or 100 shares or 200 shares. सभी लोगों से ₹30 मंगवाएंगे. ऐसे नहीं कि ये this person is related, so we'll call lesser amount from this person. No, that is not allowed. So whenever a company is making a call, the call has to be uniform. Uniform मतलब same type, similar type का call होना चाहिए to every shareholder who holds shares of the same class. Now if we talk of class A shares and class B shares, ये दोनों different class के shares है because इनका paid up value जो है वो अलग है. There is a difference in the paid up value. So these are different classes of shares. Now since there are these are different classes of shares, it may so happen that for class B shares the company makes a call of only ₹20, and that is completely fine. Why is that so? Because class A shares are different and class B shares are different. So ऐसा बिल्कुल जरूरी नहीं है कि कंपनी को क्लास ए शेयर्स के लिए जितना कॉल करी है कंपनी ₹30 कॉल करी है, तो क्लास बी शेयर्स के लिए भी ₹30 का कॉल करना पड़ेगा. इट इज नॉट मैंडेटरी, बट द ओनली मैंडेटरी थिंग इज दैट for the same class of shares the company has to make a uniform call. समझ में आया ये? Are you all clear with what uniform call means? For the same class of shares the company has to make a uniform call. मतलब सेम कॉल करेगी to all the shareholders who are holding same class of shares. Different classes है, there can be a difference in the call which is being made by the company. But if the shares are of the same class, in that situation company cannot call for different amounts from different shareholders. So this is what section 49 talks of. Section 49 बहुत ही छोटा section है, और section 49 यही बोलता है that whenever a company is making call, the company has to make uniform calls on the same class of shares. So section 49, it talks about calls, and it says that the calls have to be uniformly made. Uniformly made मतलब similar calls जाने चाहिए to shareholders holding the same class of shares. And there should be no differentiation for a given class of shareholders. You cannot differentiate between shareholders of a same class. However, where different amounts are paid for the same nominal value by the shareholders, such shares shall be deemed to be different class of shares. So जैसा हमने example में देखा, both the classes of share, उनका nominal value was same, but the paid up value was different, and that is the reason why they were shares of different classes. अगर उनका paid up value भी same होता तो वो same class के shares माने जाते. Okay, so whenever a company is making call, the calls have to be made in a uniform manner. That is same call जाएगा to shareholders holding the same class of shares. Clear है? Section 49 समझ में आया? Yes or no? Clear? Let's now start with section 50. Now, section 50 talks of calls in advance. Now, calls in advance का मतलब क्या? Say for example, I hold shares in a company. The value of each share is 100. अभी इसका डिस्टिंक्शन कैसे है इन डिफरेंट अमाउंट्स, से 30 ऑन एप्लीकेशन, 30 ऑन अलॉटमेंट, 20 is the first call, and the final 20 rupees final call. So this is the way in which the company is going to get in all these, all the 100 rupees the company will get. This is the manner. अभी क्या हो रहा है, कंपनी ने 60 rupees ऑलरेडी कंपनी के पास है. आई हैव पेड 60 rupees टू द कंपनी ऑलरेडी. कंपनी इज नॉट मेड द फर्स्ट कॉल ऑफ 20 rupees, और जो बाकी का 40 rupees का कॉल है कंपनी ने नहीं किया. नाउ से फॉर एग्जांपल आई होल्ड 10 shares in the company. So 10 shares पे I have paid 60 rupees already. So 600 rupees I have already paid to the company. Now अभी मैं क्या करती हूँ, ये जो बचा हुआ 40 rupees है ना, मैं ये भी कंपनी को पे कर देती हूँ on all the shares. Company has not made any call. Company did not make any call. But even before the company makes a call, I have paid this remaining amount of 40 rupees to the company. तो मैंने क्या किया, I didn't want to keep anything pending. So what I do is I pay this amount of 40 rupees to the company. मतलब my shares are now fully paid up. Though the company did not make this first call of 20 and final call of 20, I've already made a payment of this 40 rupees. तो ये जो 40 rupees कंपनी ने रिसीव किए, और रादर टू बी वेरी प्रिसाइज 400 rupees ऑन 10 shares जो कंपनी ने रिसीव किए हैं, ये इसको हम बोलेंगे कॉल्स रिसीव्ड इन एडवांस. So I have paid in advance to the company. I have paid this amount in advance to the company. Company did not ask me to pay this amount. Company ने मुझसे नहीं मंगवाया था ये पैसा, पर मैंने फिर भी कंपनी को पे कर दिया. Now it may so happen instead of 40 मैंने सिर्फ 20 rupees पे किया. First call नहीं किया कंपनी ने, but मैंने सिर्फ 20 rupees पे कर दिया. The advance amount which is being paid by the shareholder, it can either be paid wholly या फिर partly. But advance तो pay हो रहा है. Why are we calling it as an advance? We are calling it as an advance because this is paid even before any call has been made. No call has been made, but still हम amount pay कर रहे हैं. तो इसलिए उस टाइप, वो जो अमाउंट जो पहले की पे किया जा रहा है उसको हम बोलते हैं calls in advance. So when we talk of calls in advance, a company may accept from a member whole or part of the amount which is remaining unpaid on any shares held by him, even if no part of that amount has been called up. So जैसा हमने example में देखा, this amount of 40 rupees per share was not called up by the company. 40 rupees per share was not called up by the company, but however I have paid the amount to the company, तो ये 40 rupees क्या हो जाएगा calls in advance. Is this much clear? Did you understand the basic of what is calls in advance? Okay, I'll explain once again. So let's make it way more simpler. Let's say the value of share of the company is 10. Face value of the share is 10. Now this is divided into different amounts. The amount will be paid to the company in different in installments. Say for example, 3 rupees will be paid on application. Say 2 rupees on allotment when the share is allotted to me. Another 3 rupees when the company makes first call on the share. And the last call of 2 rupees, this will be the final call. Now, when I made the application, I paid 3 rupees. When the share was allotted to me, I paid 2 rupees. So say I have one share in this company, and on that share, 5 rupees has already been paid. So this amount was called by the company and I have paid this amount. Now with respect to the remaining 5 rupees, which is of first call and final call, the remaining amount of 5 rupees I haven't paid to the company. Sorry, the company has, I haven't paid to the company, and the company has also not made a call to receive this 5 rupees. But even before the company makes this call, I have paid this 5 rupees to the company. मतलब company के call करने से पहले ही I've made this payment of 5 rupees, which means company has received this amount in advance. Even before the company could make a call, even before I could become obligated or liable to pay this amount, I have made the payment of this amount. Now, say for example, you have purchased some furniture, you've purchased a mobile phone. You did not receive the delivery of the mobile phone, but you've already paid the money, which means that you have paid an advance for the purchase of that mobile phone. Or say for example, whenever you have a function, we book a banquet hall. अभी banquet hall book करते हैं तो वहां पे advance pay करना पड़ता है आपको. You pay some deposit, you pay some advance, so that amount you pay there even before the function is over, even before you utilize that banquet hall. So similarly यहाँ पे क्या हो रहा है, even before the company has made a call, I am making the payment which is an advance which is received by the company. Company did not call that money. Company would have made the call whenever the company required that money, but even before the company could make a call, I have made an advance payment, and that advance payment is called as calls in advance. Now when we talk of calls in advance, it can either be whole amount of 5 rupees, or I've paid say only 3 rupees in advance. So it can either be a whole payment or a part payment. So that amount which is received by the company is called as calls in advance. Okay. Now, a company can receive calls in advance only if it is authorized by its articles of association to receive calls in advance. मतलब अगर articles of association में ये लिखा हुआ है that company is eligible to receive calls in advance, then yes, the company can receive calls in advance, but otherwise the company cannot receive any calls in advance. But however, when we talk of voting right, the members shall not have voting right in respect of advance amount paid by him till the amount is duly called up by the company. Now what this means, अभी जैसे मैंने बोला था वोटिंग बाय पोल जब होता है तो आपका जितना पेड अप कैपिटल होता है उसके प्रपोर्शन में द वोट इज काउंटेड. नाउ द कंपनी हैड कॉल्ड ओनली 5 रुपीज, बट मैंने एक्स्ट्रा 5 रुपीज पे कर दिए कंपनी को, तो मेरा जो प्रपोर्शन काउंट किया जाएगा whenever I am voting in the company, it will count it only in the proportion of that 5 rupees which have been called by the company and not the calls in advance which I have paid. So जब तक कंपनी वो कॉल नहीं करती तब तक वो वाला अमाउंट जो है वो नहीं मतलब वोटिंग राइट के लिए कंप्यूट नहीं किया जाएगा, इन कंसिडरेशन नहीं लिया जाएगा. सो द मेंबर्स वोटिंग राइट would always be proportionate to the amount which has been paid upon the share, but only when the company has made a call on that particular call of that particular amount. तो उस सिचुएशन में अभी नाउ आई हैव अ क्वेश्चन फॉर यू, एंड माय क्वेश्चन इज, कंपनी ने एडवांस एक्सेप्ट कर लिया, you paid 5 rupees extra to the company even before the call was made, and company has accepted it. Now you tell me, do you think company will have to pay some interest to you on this amount, calls in advance पे कुछ interest pay करना पड़ेगा company को आपको? Will company have to pay any interest to you on the calls in advance, calls which the company has accepted in advance? Yes. Yes. Why do you say company को interest pay करना पड़ेगा? Just because I asked you a question, आप मुझे ऐसा बोल रहे हो, या there's some logic, you think there's some logic, or it is logical that company should pay call in advance, pay interest on calls in advance?
Ma'am, as before the obligation to pay only the shareholder is paying to the company,
right,
that amount, so the company should pay the interest.
The company should definitely pay interest because a person has paid an amount to the company even before the obligation would arise.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
since the person has paid the amount before, even before the company would make a call on that, so जब तक company उस पे call नहीं कर देती, company will have to pay some amount of interest on this calls in advance, and the rate of interest is 12% per annum. So 12% per annum पे the company will have to pay interest on the calls in advance which are received by the company. So yes, all of you were correct. Company will have to pay some amount as interest on these calls in advance which are accepted by the company. Now let's talk of section 51, which talks of payment of dividend in proportion. So ये क्या बोलता है? It basically says that the company is permitted to pay dividend in proportion to the amount paid up on each share if authorized by the articles of association. Now whenever we talk of dividend in a company का जो dividend होता है ना, कंपनी का जो डिविडेंड होता है वो एक परसेंटेज होता है. डिविडेंड इज पेड एज अ परसेंटेज ऑन द percentage to the shareholders. So the company, it is permitted to pay dividends in proportion to the amount which is actually paid up on each share. So matlab, just because if you have paid say advance में an amount to the company, आपको extra dividend मिलेगा या फिर increased amount of dividend मिलेगा, ऐसा नहीं होगा. Your dividend will be calculated on the amount which is paid up on the share, amount which is being paid up on the shares of the company. So section 51 basically says that the dividend in proportion to the paid up capital, paid up value on each share, if it is authorized by the authorized by the articles of association, the company is permitted to pay dividends in proportion to the amount which is paid up on each share of the company. Yeah, dividend is paid on the nominal value of the company, but in a situation where the articles of association of the company authorize the company to pay dividend on a proportionate basis, on the proportionate or on proportion of the paid up capital, तो उस situation में the company is allowed to pay dividend on a proportionate basis. But in normal situation, it is definitely on the nominal value of the share. क्लियर है? 49, 50, 51 समझ में आया. तीनों बहुत ही छोटे से सेक्शंस है, बट they can play with these sections, and especially section 50 जो है calls in advance वाला, they can play with these sections and ask you some MCQ type of questions based on these sections. So ये तीनों sections clear है? समझ में आया सबको? Yes. Okay. So now after this, we will start with another very important concept, and that is issue of shares at premium. I mean, now let's say for example, share ka nominal value is say 100 rupees. The nominal value of the share is say 100 rupees. But the share is issued by the company at 120 rupees. So यहाँ पे 20 rupees extra आ रहा है company के पास. The nominal value of the share is 100 rupees. However, the share is being issued by the company at 120 rupees, which means the company is receiving 20 rupees extra on the share. Now this additional amount which is received by the company is the amount of premium. Now I'm sure you would have learned this when you were doing company accounts ki issue of share at premium ki journal entry kya hoti hai. So can you quickly tell me what would be the journal entry for issue of shares at premium whenever the company issues shares at premium? I know ye accounts ka class nahi hai, law ka class hai, but I would still ask you what is the journal entry for issue of shares at premium?
Ma'am.
Yeah.
Bank account to equity share capital to securities premium.
Okay. So I have received only one answer. Matlab, there are somewhere 10 of you or 5, 6 of you here.
Mom?
Yeah.
Mom, it's bank account debit to equity share application. It's first entry, and second entry is that equity share application account debit to equity share capital to securities premium. There are two entries for it. One for receiving it and another for allocating it to the equity share capital account.
Okay, ठीक है. ठीक है. So basically ये जो 20 rupees है, it goes into a separate account altogether. So the main intention behind why I wanted you to give me the journal entry is that this 20 rupees, this additional 20 rupees, it goes to a separate account altogether, and that account is a securities premium account. अभी जो कंपनी है, कंपनी is allowed to issue shares at premium. डिस्काउंट पे कंपनी इशू नहीं कर सकती, देयर इज अ प्रोहिबिशन, बट प्रीमियम पे एंड एडिशनल अमाउंट पे कंपनी शेयर्स इशू कर सकती है. तो ये जो एडिशनल ₹20 कंपनी कॉल कर एडिशनल ₹20 कंपनी को मिल रहा है, दिस एडिशनल ₹20 विल गो टू अ सेपरेट अकाउंट व्हिच इज कॉल्ड एज द सिक्योरिटीज प्रीमियम अकाउंट. And this ₹20 which the company is receiving, the company can utilize this ₹20 but only for some certain specified purposes. So here when we talk of issue of shares at premium, it is basically a situation wherein the shares are being issued at a value which is more than its nominal value and that is higher than the face value. So जो भी difference का amount है वो जाएगा premium के account में. अभी प्रीमियम के अकाउंट में अगर अमाउंट जा रहा है तो वो प्रीमियम सिक्योरिटीज प्रीमियम अकाउंट में से हाउ आर यू गोइंग टू यूटिलाइज द अमाउंट, और what are the different ways in which you can utilize this amount which is lying there in the securities premium account. So when we talk of utilization of the securities premium account, there are only 5 purposes for which we can use the money, only 5 purposes for which we can use the amount which is lying in the securities premium account. सबसे पहला purpose for which the amount can be utilized is for issue of bonus shares. अच्छा मुझे ये बताओ, बोनस शेयर्स फुल्ली पेड अप होते हैं, पार्टली पेड अप होते हैं? I'm usually asked this question, so before someone asks this question to you, let me ask this question to you. Bonus shares fully paid up होते हैं, partly paid up होते हैं? Fully paid up. You can never issue partly paid up bonus shares. Bonus मतलब आप फ्री में शेयर्स दे रहे हो, राइट? सो जब आप फ्री में शेयर्स दे रहे हो, आप पार्टली पेड शेयर्स फ्री में नहीं दे सकते. यू कैन नॉट से आई विल पे हाफ द अमाउंट एंड यू पे हाफ द अमाउंट. नो, दैट इज नॉट हाउ थिंग्स हैपन. अगर कोई आपको कोई चीज फ्री में दे रहा है, से फॉर एग्जांपल अ फ्रेंड ऑफ योर्स इज गिविंग यू अ ट्रीट, ही इज गिविंग यू अ ट्रीट. अभी फिर बाद में जब बिल आता है तब वो बोलता है कि 50% तू पे कर और 50% मैं पे करूं. विल दैट बी अ ट्रीट और विल दैट बी अ नॉर्मल डिनर और अ लंच? हाँ, डेफिनेटली लॉल. It would be a normal one. If someone says that I am giving you a treat, it is basically a situation wherein that other person is going to pay the entire bill or whatsoever it is. It is entirely on that other person. But if you both are distributing it, it wouldn't be a treat that in such a situation, right? सो जब आप कंपनी बोल रही है कि हम आपको बोनस शेयर्स इशू कर रहे हैं और फिर कंपनी बोलती है कि नहीं हम पार्टली पेड अप बोनस शेयर्स इशू करेंगे, पार्टली पेड बोनस शेयर्स हो ही नहीं सकते. बोनस शेयर्स आर ऑलवेज फुल्ली पेड अप. So the first way in which we can utilize the amount which is lying in the securities premium account is by way of issue of fully paid bonus shares. It can be utilized for issuing fully paid bonus shares. Apart from it, the amount in securities premium account can be utilized for the purpose of writing off preliminary expenses. What are preliminary expenses? Expenses which are incurred during the time of incorporation of the company. जो भी basic expenses incur किए company ने. So this amount in securities premium account, it can be utilized for the purposes of writing off the preliminary expenses of the company. Apart from this, it can also be utilized for the purposes of writing off any expenses which are in the nature of commission or discount. Commission here could be underwriting commission. Do you all know what underwriting commission is? Do you all know what underwriting commission is? Yes.
How much money paid to underwriters for just giving security, so that it's like they'll if the shares are not being subscribed by the share, I mean the public,
When the company does not receive minimum subscription, so at that time the underwriters, they step in, they subscribe to the shares of the company in order to reach the amount of minimum subscription, and for that they are paid some amount as commission because they are bearing a certain level of risk. So वो जो underwriting commission है या कुछ और expenses है या फिर any discount which is allowed by the company at the time of for issue of shares or debentures, so वो वाले expenses जो है उनको write off करने के लिए you can utilize the amount which is lying in the securities premium account. Apart from it, this amount can also be utilized for the payment of premium on redemption of preference shares or debentures. So this amount can be utilized for payment of premium on redemption. Redemption basically means repayment. Redemption of preference shares or debentures. And finally, the last purpose for which this amount in this account can be utilized is for buyback. Buyback is basically when the company purchases its own shares, that is called as buyback, and we'll discuss about buyback in detail when we go to section 68. However, the amount here in the securities premium account can be utilized for the purpose of buyback as well. So these are the only 5 purposes for which the amount in the securities premium account can be utilized. And apart from these 5 purposes, the amount in the securities premium account cannot be utilized for any other purpose. Are you all clear? These are the only 5 purposes for which the amount in the securities premium account can be utilized, and apart from this, the securities premium account cannot be utilized for any other purpose. इसके अलावा कोई और चीज के लिए आप अमाउंट जो है सिक्योरिटीज प्रीमियम का वो यूटिलाइज नहीं कर सकते हो. नाउ से कंपनी ने मशीनरी खरीदा, मशीनरी के पेमेंट के लिए यूटिलाइज करना है, नहीं कर सकते. देयर इज अ रेस्ट्रिक्शन. A company can utilize this amount only and only for all of these purposes. Apart from these purposes, the company cannot utilize the amount for any other purpose. I hope this much is clear. Yes. So let's have a look at section 52, which talks of issue of shares at premium. So issue of shares at premium, section 52 ये बोलता है when the shares are issued at a higher price higher than the face value. So जो भी higher amount होता है than the face value, that higher amount will be the premium amount, and that higher amount, that differential amount will go to a separate account, and that separate account is called as the securities premium account. Now, what are the purposes for which the amount in securities premium can be utilized? Can be utilized for issue of bonus shares, preliminary expenses, expenses of commission which is paid, discount allowed on issue of shares or debentures, providing for premium on redemption of preference shares or debentures, and for the purposes of buyback. Now, this section is a very, very, very important section. Especially these 5 points are very important points. This has been asked in the examinations quite a few times, wherein you have to mention the purposes for which the amount in the securities premium account can be utilized. And ये काफी बार पूछा गया है examinations में भी. This particular point, this can be asked either as a direct question or this can also be asked in the form of a case study based questions. Direct question भी पूछ सकते हैं as to what are the purposes for which the amount in the securities premium account can be utilized. नहीं तो वो क्या करते हैं, they give you a case study, they make a case study, and वो case study form में भी आपको ये question पूछ सकते हैं. So I have a question यहाँ पे. I'll share that question. This is a question in your ICI study material only, but I wanted you all to have a look at the question and answer this question. Are you all able to see the question? Is the question visible? Yes. Question number 6. So quickly read the question and give your answers, please. Walnut Foods wala jo question hai. Quickly read the question and give your answers. I'm waiting for your answers. Okay, so I have a few answers here. So यहाँ पे क्या हो रहा है? They want to utilize the amount in the securities premium for business purposes. Abhi business purposes, do they fall under those 5 purposes? They do not. Business purposes तो वो 5 purposes में आता ही नहीं है. So that's the reason why यहाँ पे the board of directors, they are asking for your advice, and I guess आप लोगों ने सबने सही advice दिया है. Though I have not received answers from everyone, but I believe that everyone who has understood the section clearly would be of the same opinion as the people who've given me the answers. Now there's one more thing which you should know about section 52, and that is, अभी हमने समझा that the amount in the securities premium account can be utilized for 5 purposes, but इसमें भी ना एक distinction है. One is, say company who has to comply with, whose financial standards has to financial statements have to comply with accounting standards which have been prescribed under section 133, and then there are other companies. So these are some prescribed class of companies and who are required, whose financial statements shall comply with the accounting standards under section 133. So यहाँ पे ना, there are only 3 ways in which these companies can utilize the amount in their securities premium account. First one is for issue of bonus shares. Second one is for the purposes of buyback. And the third one is for payment of, for writing off expenses which are in the nature of commission or discount which is allowed for the purpose of issue of shares or debentures. So ये 3 purposes के लिए use कर सकती है ये वाली companies, these companies who are required, these prescribed class of companies who are required to comply with the accounting standards which are specified under section 133. They can utilize the amount in the securities premium account only for 3 purposes. One is for bonus issue, the other is for buyback, and the other is for writing off expenses which are in the nature of commission or discount allowed. Which means 2 चीजें जिनके लिए ये companies नहीं use कर सकती there, the amount in the securities premium account is, one for writing of preliminary expenses and second for the purposes of premium on redemption. So those two purposes, for those two purposes, the other companies, they can utilize the amount in securities premium account for all the 5 purposes. But ये जो companies है, ये जो prescribed class of companies है, they can utilize the amount in the securities premium account only for these 3 purposes and no other purpose apart from these 3 purposes. ये point समझ में आया? Normal companies, they can utilize it for all the 5 purposes which have been specified under section 52. However, prescribed class of companies who are required to comply with the accounting, whose financial statements are required to be made in accordance with the accounting standards as specified under section 133, these class of companies can utilize the amount in the securities premium account only for 3 purposes: issue of bonus shares, buyback of shares, or writing off any expenses in the form of commission or discount which is allowed on issue of shares or debentures. So, however, there is no company which is being prescribed as of now, but still there is this particular provision which is being given, and you should know what it says. ये point समझ में आया सबको? So this is the point. Securities premium account may be applied by such class of companies as may be prescribed. No company has been prescribed as of now, and whose financial statements comply with the accounting standards under 133. And these companies can utilize the amount in the securities premium account only for the following purposes. पहला है bonus share के लिए. Second one is writing of expenses in the form of commission or discount allowed. And third one is buyback of its own shares, which means they cannot utilize the amount in the securities premium account for the purposes of writing of preliminary expenses and premium on redemption. ये point समझ में आया सबको? Are you all clear with this particular point? No companies have been prescribed as of now, but still you should know कि क्या difference है. Okay, so let's start with section 53, which talks about issue of shares at discount. सबसे पहले तो ये बात समझ लो कि issue of shares at discount is prohibited. A company cannot issue shares at discount. ये allowed ही नहीं है company को. It is completely prohibited. A company is not allowed to issue shares at discount at all. तो फिर ये प्रोविजन ही क्यों पड़ रहा है सेक्शन 53 का? Why are we talking of issue of shares at discount? So in general sense, in normal circumstances, the company is prohibited from issuing shares at discount. Now, what do we mean when we say issue of shares at discount? Say the shares of 100 rupees, but company उसको issue कर रहा है सिर्फ 90 rupees में, तो तब हम बोलेंगे कि the share has been issued at discount. I'm sure you might have done journal entries for issue of shares at discount in accountancy, but Section 53 जो है Companies Act का, it gives a specific prohibition. It specifically prohibits a company from issuing shares at discount. It does not allow a company to issue shares at discount. So a company is completely prohibited from issuing shares at discount. But exceptions are always there. So जब भी हम law की बात कर रहे हैं, exceptions हर जगह आते हैं, exception कहीं ना कहीं से आ ही जाता है. And one exception is in case of issue of sweat equity shares. We'll understand what sweat equity shares are अभी आगे जब जाएंगे in section 54. So one such issue which can be made at discount is issue of sweat equity shares. So if a company is issuing sweat equity shares, then in that situation, the company can definitely issue shares at discount. But if a company is making any issue of shares at discount, it shall be null and void. Apart from sweat equity shares, अगर company कोई भी shares at discount issue कर रही है, so वो जो issue होगा, that issue would be null and void. It will have no validity. It will have no legal effect. So ये point समझ में आया? a company is prohibited from issuing any shares at an amount which is less than the face value of share. However, there's an exception, and the exception is in case of issue of sweat equity shares. Matlab, whenever a company is issuing sweat equity shares, the provisions of section 53 will not apply there. That is the prohibition which has been given to which has been given under section 53 will not apply. Iske alawa, there's one more exception to it. Now, what is that one more exception? Let's understand it with help of an example. Now, say for example, there's a company XYZ Limited, and ये company ने bank से loan लिया है. The amount of loan which the company is taken from bank is say rupees 50 lakhs. Okay, so the company has taken a loan of rupees 50 lakhs from the bank, but over a period of time, this company goes into a cash crunch or liquidity crisis. Liquidity crisis or cash crunch is basically a situation wherein the company does not have sufficient amount to repay this amount of 50 lakh rupees. मतलब company के पास पैसे ही नहीं है, company के पास funds नहीं है कि company ये जो 50 lakh rupees है वो pay करे to the bank. But pay to करना पड़ेगा. Company has taken a loan, company has borrowed money, bank is the creditor of the company. Even if the company is in cash crunch, even if the company is under some liquidity crisis, the company will still have to pay the amount of 50 lakhs. Yeah, do you think bank will waive off 50 lakhs entirely? Bank बोलेगा ठीक है, you do not have funds, so we have sympathy with you and मत पे करो आप 50 लाख रुपए, हम waive off कर देते हैं. ऐसा करेगा कोई बैंक? Do you think banks will do this? अगर से फॉर एग्जाम्पल आपने किसी को 50 लाख रुपीज लेंड किए और अभी उस पर्सन का फाइनेंशियल कंडीशन इज नॉट गुड, विल यू लीव दैट पर्सन? विल यू से ठीक है जा, मत पे कर मेरे 50 लाख रुपए? आप बोल दोगे ऐसा? हाँ, आप तो बड़े दिलदार हो ना, बोल दोगे ना कि नहीं कोई जरूरत नहीं है 50 लाख रुपए पे करने की, इट इज ओके, आई विल मैनेज. यू वुड डेफिनेटली नॉट डू दैट. कोई फ्रेंड भी हो, बेस्ट फ्रेंड भी हो, तो भी ऐसा कोई कुछ नहीं करता है. तो यहाँ पे इस सिचुएशन में अभी XYZ लिमिटेड इज अंडर कैश क्रंच. XYZ लिमिटेड के पास पैसा नहीं है, पर बैंक को तो पैसा देना है. सो इस सिचुएशन में द कंपनी कैन इशू शेयर्स टू द बैंक. कंपनी बोलती है देखो बैंक, हम आपको पैसा तो नहीं पे कर सकते, बट आई कैन डू वन थिंग, and that is I can issue my shares to you. I can issue equity shares in my company to you at a discount. मैं discounted price में ना आपको मेरे equity shares जो है वो issue कर सकती हूँ. So settlement करने के लिए यहाँ पे instead of paying cash to the bank, क्या हो रहा है? Equity shares are being issued to the bank at a discounted rate, at a discounted price. So in a situation wherein the company is issuing shares at discount, wherein the debt is converted into shares, and it is under a proper debt restructuring scheme, a proper debt restructuring plan which has been made, and it is in accordance with the guidelines which have been specified by the Reserve Bank of India या फिर the Banking Regulation Act, तो फिर this type of issue of shares at discount is allowed. तो फिर इस सिचुएशन में कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, कंपनी कैन इशू शेयर्स एट डिस्काउंट. सो दिस इज अनदर एक्सेप्शनल सिचुएशन वेयरइन द कंपनी कैन इशू शेयर्स एट डिस्काउंट. ये पॉइंट समझ में आया? सो वेयरइन द डेट इज बीइंग कन्वर्टेड इनटू इक्विटी, उस सिचुएशन में the company can issue shares at discount, and this conversion of debt into equity is happening under an approved debt restructuring scheme and it is happening in accordance with the guidelines, with the regulations which are specified by the Reserve Bank of India and the Banking Regulation Act. तो अगर इन सभी चीजों के प्रोविजंस को आप कंप्लाई विद कर रहे हो, सो यहाँ पे द कंपनी कैन इशू शेयर्स एट अ डिस्काउंटेड प्राइस टू द बैंक. इज दिस मच क्लियर? So दो situations जहाँ पे shares discount पे issue हो सकते हैं. One is where in case of issue of sweat equity shares. The second is wherein a debt is being converted into equity. Clear? Have you all understood this point? Is this example clear? Yes. So there's a prohibition on issue of shares at premium. However, section 54, which talks about sweat equity shares, वहाँ पे section 53 will not apply. And if any share is issued by at discount by the company, it shall be null and void. उसका कोई validity नहीं रहेगा. Exception is company may issue shares at discount to its creditors when its debt is converted into shares under a statutory resolution plan or a debt restructuring scheme as per RBI. So अगर एक proper resolution plan के under ये restructuring हो रहा है, debt is being converted into equity, then it's okay. In that situation, if the company is issuing shares at a discount, then that is fine. Now, let me give you a background history ki ye wala provision kab aaya and how relevant it is. So 2015 was the year wherein RBI it came with SDR scheme. SDR basically means strategic debt restructuring. So वहाँ पे one of the options which was specified was this one. So under this strategic debt restructuring scheme of the Reserve Bank of India, this type of conversion of debt into equity was allowed, and issue of shares at discount during that time was also allowed. So यहाँ पे क्या हो रहा है? XYZ Limited बैंक को बोल रहा है कि अभी तक तो आप हमारे क्रेडिटर थे, but now when I'm issuing equity shares to you, you will now have an ownership interest in my company. So accept equity shares in lieu of the loan which I have to pay to you. So this is how restructuring happens, and this is also a situation जहाँ पे shares जो है वो at a discounted rate, at a discount would be issued. अगर इतना मतलब प्रोहिबिशन होने के बाद भी अगर कंपनी इशू कर देती है शेयर्स एट डिस्काउंट, द कंपनी फेल्स टू कंप्लाई विद सेक्शन 53, देन क्या होगा? पनिशमेंट मिलेगी. और सिर्फ कंपनी को पनिशमेंट नहीं मिलेगी, एवरी ऑफिसर हु इज इन डिफॉल्ट विल आल्सो बी पनिश्ड. नाउ व्हाट इज द पनिशमेंट प्रिस्क्राइब्ड? It is amount which is raised through the issue of shares at discount or 5 lakh rupees, whichever is less. So penalty क्या लगेगी कंपनी को? Amount raised, say for example the amount which is raised by issue of shares at discount is say 7 lakhs or 5 lakhs, whichever is less. So 5 lakh would be the amount of penalty. So जितना amount company raise कर रही है by way of issue of shares at discount या फिर 5 lakhs, whichever is less would be the fine. And apart from it, जो भी amount company ने receive किया है by way of issue of shares at discount, the company will have to pay this amount back to the people from whom the company has received the amount, and this money has to be refunded along with interest. Company ने पैसा लिया, इशू किया शेयर्स डिस्काउंट पे which was in violation of section 53, तो उस सिचुएशन में जो भी पैसा कंपनी ने लिया है from people, the company will have to refund all the money which it has received from people, and not only the money but the money has to be refunded along with interest at the rate of 12% per annum from the date of issue of such shares to the person to whom the shares were issued. समझ में आया? Yes. So the company and every officer in default, they'll be penalized. Amount क्या होगा? Amount would be amount which is being raised by the issue, or 5 lakhs, whichever is less. This would be the amount of penalty, and whatever amount the company has received by way of issue of shares at discount, the company will have to refund the entire amount which it has received by way of issue of shares at discount. And when the company is returning this amount, the company will also have to pay interest at the rate of 12% per annum at the time of refund of the amount, and this 12% will be calculated from the date of issue. समझ में आया? MCQ question type of question के लिए ये बहुत relevant provision है. So are you all clear? with section 53, and also understand that the prohibitions, the restrictions which have been specified under section 53, they are applicable only of shares. It is only talking of issue of shares at discount. It is not talking of debentures or bonds. मतलब debentures और bonds जो है वो discounted rate पे issue हो सकता है. Share, there is a prohibition on issue of shares at discount. If you look at section 53, यहाँ पे the text itself says prohibition on issue of shares at discount, which means it is only and only talking of shares and not all the securities. Whenever we use this term securities, we are not only referring to shares, but we are also referring to debentures. But यहाँ पे जो restriction है, यहाँ पे जो prohibition है, that is only a prohibition on issue of shares at discount and not securities at discount. अगर यहाँ पे shares की जगह term security use होता, सिक्योरिटीज यूज होता, तो इन दैट सिचुएशन डिबेंचर्स भी इंक्लूड हो जाते, बट यहाँ पे द टर्म व्हिच इज बीइंग यूज्ड इज ओनली शेयर्स. सो देयर इज अ प्रोहिबिशन ऑन इशू ऑफ शेयर्स एट डिस्काउंट. डिबेंचर्स कैन बी इशूड एट डिस्काउंट. डिबेंचर्स पे कोई रेस्ट्रिक्शन या प्रोहिबिशन नहीं है. So all the restrictions which are mentioned under 52 and 53 apply to only issue of shares and not to debt related products like bonds and debentures. Is this clear? ये समझ में आया? Are you all clear with section 52 issue of shares at premium and section 53 prohibition on issue of shares at discount? Any questions? Okay. So let's now start with another and a very important section, section 54, which talks of sweat equity shares. Now, what do you think sweat equity shares are? मैं अगर सिंपल टर्म्स में बोलूं स्वेट इक्विटी शेयर्स क्या होता है, तो ये होता है किसी के खून पसीने की मेहनत, और किसी के खून पसीने की मेहनत की वजह से अगर किसी को शेयर्स अलॉट हो रहे हैं तो उनको हम स्वेट इक्विटी शेयर्स बोल रहे हैं. Why do you think ये word sweat use किया है यहाँ पे? There is a logic behind use of this word sweat. They did not just want to give a fancy nomenclature to a category of share, but rather it is actually related to a person's sweat. It is actually related to a person's hard-earned value addition which he has made into the company. So what do you think sweat equity shares are? Issued to employees, promoters. But why do you think shares are being issued to employees and promoters or directors? For their valuable contribution. Okay. For their hard work. Now, do you think sweat equity shares will be issued to every employee, every director of the company? हर किसी को, everyone works hard. Everyone, if I am an employee in a company, or if you are an employee in the company, everyone works hard. It is not that no one's working hard. Everyone is working hard. तो सबको मिलने चाहिए ना sweat equity shares. Not for everyone. So
issued with a condition that they gotta stay in the company for so and so years. Only after that they'll just get this benefit.
No, there's no such thing for sweat equity shares. The thing you're talking of is related to ESOPs and other technical things. So sweat equity shares के लिए ऐसा जरूरी नहीं that I have to stay in the company for so many number of years and only after that I'll get sweat equity shares. Anything else? Any other point which you would want to add?
Ma'am, I know the difference between ESOP and sweat equity shares, ma'am.
We'll come to that. ESOP से एक अलग से topic है which we'll discuss. तो अभी let's talk of sweat equity shares. Okay, let me take an example and say let's understand sweat equity shares. Now say there's this company Tata Motors. ठीक है, टाटा मोटर्स एक कंपनी है. अभी टाटा मोटर्स में एक एम्प्लॉई है मिस्टर राज. Mr. Raj is an employee in Tata Motors. Now, Mr. Raj, what he does is he's an automobile engineer and he's into research activities. बहुत सारी research activities वगैरह करता रहता है. And Mr. Raj, he has developed a formula. ऐसा फॉर्मूला उन्होंने डेवलप किया जिससे कार्स का माइलेज बढ़ जाएगा. बेसिकली Mr. Raj, he has done an extensive research as a result of which he has arrived at a formula which will increase the mileage which the car gives. अभी कार का माइलेज अच्छा हो जाएगा तो लोगों का ऑब्वियसली पेट्रोल का कॉस्ट और दूसरे कॉस्ट जो है वो कम हो जाएंगे. एंड Mr. Raj has also taken a patent on it. Patent is an intellectual property right. It is an IPR. So Raj ne he has not only developed this formula, he's also taken a patent on this formula which he has developed. And since he's an employee of Tata Motors has this formula, he has developed this for his own company. So do you think yahan pe Raj has done or something exceptionally well for the company, exceptionally good for the company? Yes, he has made a value addition in the company. देखो अगर मैं रोज ऑफिस जा रही हूँ और रोज ऑफिस का वही काम करके आ रही हूँ कंपनी में, आई एम नॉट डूइंग एनी वैल्यू एडिशन, आई एम नॉट मेकिंग एनी वैल्यू एडिशन. I am not making any value addition if I'm only doing what my job is to do. But if I'm doing something else, if I'm developing something for the company, say for example, there's another employee, एक software का employee है इस company में, say Mr. Ramesh. अभी Mr. Ramesh, he wanted to streamline the entire process in the company. हर process flow को streamline करना था, तो उसके लिए he has made a proper process flow, जिससे the time for each process in the company has reduced. मैन्युफैक्चरिंग का टाइम और हर प्रोसेस का टाइम जो था it has reduced. So Ramesh here has also made a value addition. बट अगर मैं नॉर्मल काम कर रही हूँ कंपनी में, आई एम एन एम्प्लॉई एंड आई एम डूइंग ओनली व्हाट आई हैव टू डू, नॉट मेकिंग एनी अदर वैल्यू एडिशन इन द कंपनी, तो वहां पे आई विल नॉट गेट एनी स्वेट इक्विटीज. कंपनी विल नॉट रिवॉर्ड मी, बट कंपनी विल डेफिनेटली want to preserve employees like Raj and Ramesh in the company. Company would definitely want these type of people to stay with them for a longer term so that आगे भी उनको benefit हो. और उसलिए company in order to reward them, company in order to provide them with some incentives, the company issues sweat equity shares. Company बोलता है आपने बहुत मेहनत की है, you have worked very hard, so let us reward you, let us give you some incentive, and that incentive will be in the form of sweat equity shares. So one very important thing which comes up when we are talking of sweat equity shares is there has to be a value addition. Now when we talk of value addition means एक्चुअली ना आगे कंपनी को कुछ इकोनॉमिक बेनिफिट्स होंगे या फिर there's some know-how which has been provided by this person to the company, or there's some intellectual property right which has been provided by this person to the company. तब हम बोलेंगे कि हाँ there's an actual value addition. If I am just going every day to the office, sitting from there 9 to 5, 9 to 6 जो भी office timings है, बस मैं मेरा काम करके आ रही हूँ, there's no value addition which I'm doing, तो company will not give me sweat equity shares. But if I do something exceptionally well which will result into economic benefits to the company in the long run, तो फिर company will definitely want to keep me with them for a long run. In the long run they will not want to lose me as an employee there. तो उस situation में company मुझे sweat equity shares issue करेगी if I have actually made a value addition to the company, and that is the reason why this nomenclature has been given to the shares sweat equity shares. Actually में किसी ने बहुत मेहनत की है, बहुत ज़्यादा hard work put in किया है, and that's the reason why they could make certain value addition. So one very important term when we are talking of sweat equity shares is value addition. There's some value addition which has been made by a particular person in the company. समझ में आया अभी sweat equity shares का concept? Are you all clear with the concept, the reason behind issue of sweat equity shares? Yes. So let's have a look at the definition of sweat equity shares. उसके बाद में हम कुछ और terms का meaning देखेंगे. So section 2 clause 88 defines sweat equity shares. It says sweat equity shares means such equity shares as are issued by company to whom? To its directors or employees at a discount or for consideration other than cash for providing their know-how or making available rights in the nature of intellectual property rights, that is patent ho या trademark हो, copyright हो, कुछ भी form में, or any value additions by whatever name called. So if an employee or the director, they have provided some know-how to the company, or they have made available some intellectual property rights to the company, or they've made some value addition in the company, in that situation the company may issue sweat equity shares to that director or employee of the company. और जब हम स्वेट इक्विटी शेयर्स की बात करें, द कंपनी कैन ईदर इशू, से फॉर एग्जांपल मार्केट प्राइस शेयर का है 150 रुपीज, बट कंपनी ये शेयर एम्प्लॉय को इशू कर रहा है एट ओनली 50 रुपीज. मतलब 150 का शेयर इस एम्प्लॉय को सिर्फ 50 रुपए में मिल रहा है. अ वेरी गुड डील, राइट? हु विल गिव यू अ शेयर वर्थ 150 फॉर ओनली 50 रुपीज? इट कैन बी इशूड ईदर एट डिस्काउंट, या फिर इट कैन बी इशूड टोटली फ्री में भी पूरा दे सकती है कंपनी. 150 का शेयर है, but we'll not take anything from you, we'll give it to you for free, depending on the type of value addition the person has done. So all these things will be calculated, the price will be determined by proper valuation कि कौन से price पे offer करना चाहिए employee को या director को with this particular share. So sweat equity share क्या होता है? Sweat equity share is a share which is issued either to a director of the company or the employee of the company. Director or employee, wherein they have provided some know-how to the company, or they have provided some intellectual property rights to the company, or they have made any other value addition in the company. So those type of shares are called as sweat equity shares. Now let's now understand कि employee में कौन-कौन लोग cover होते हैं. So employee means a permanent employee working whether in India or outside India. So employee की जब बात करते हैं तो he's a permanent employee in the company. Now permanent employee का मतलब क्या होता है? Permanent employee is basically a person who is on the payroll of the company. कंपनी के पेरोल पे जिसको हर महीने सैलरी जा रही है. Now there are some people who work with companies on contract basis. Contract basis पे काम करते हैं 3-4 महीना. They work for a particular project, as in when the project is done, their work is also done. So they are not permanent employees of the company. So employee here refers to a permanent employee of the company, whether he is working in India or outside India. This includes a director of the company or employee or director as defined in subclause A and B, मतलब permanent employee या फिर ये, in a subsidiary in India or outside India, or a holding company of the company. मतलब can also be an employee or director of subsidiary company or holding company. तो ये सारे लोग एम्प्लॉय के मीनिंग में कवर्ड है फॉर द पर्पस ऑफ इशू ऑफ स्वेट इक्विटी शेयर्स. सो इट इंक्लूड्स अ permanent employee, it includes a director, it includes an employee or director of a subsidiary company whether in India or outside India, or of a holding company of that company whose sweat equity shares are being issued. Is this clear? ये समझ में आया एम्प्लॉय का मीनिंग? Have you understood the meaning of employee? I am not talking to myself here, so I expect you to answer whenever asking a question. ठीक है. So अभी तक we have understood what sweat equity shares are, and we've also understood who are the employees. मतलब कौन से एम्प्लॉइज को स्वेट इक्विटी शेयर्स इशू किया जा सकता है, हु इज कवर्ड अंडर द मीनिंग ऑफ द टर्म एम्प्लॉय. नाउ स्वेट इक्विटी शेयर्स अगर कंपनी को इशू करना है, कंपनी ऐसे ही तो नहीं कर सकती. Authorizations are required, and there are some conditions which have to be complied with by the company, and only then the company can issue sweat equity shares. See, कंपनी को कुछ भी करना है, उसके लिए कंपनी हैज टू फॉलो सर्टेन कंडीशंस, सर्टेन टर्म्स, सर्टेन प्रोविजंस व्हिच हैव बीन स्पेसिफाइड. So what are the conditions which the company has to comply with when a company is issuing sweat equity shares? सबसे पहले तो special resolution pass करना पड़ेगा. The company will have to pass a special resolution. The issue of sweat equity shares has to be authorized by a special resolution. So the first condition क्या आ गया? First condition क्या आ गया हमारा? Special resolution चाहिए. Second condition क्या है? वो जो स्पेशल रेजोल्यूशन का नोटिस जाएगा ना, दैट स्पेशल रेजोल्यूशन शैल क्लियरली स्पेसिफाई, इट शुड क्लियरली स्टेट की व्हाट इज द नंबर ऑफ शेयर्स व्हिच आर बीइंग इशूड, व्हाट इज द करंट मार्केट प्राइस ऑफ द शेयर, एंड व्हाट इज द कंसिडरेशन if you are issuing it at discount, तो कितना ना कंसिडरेशन आप ले रहे हो फ्रॉम योर एम्प्लॉय, एंड कौन से डायरेक्टर्स को या कौन से एम्प्लॉयज को ये वाले शेयर्स इशू होने वाले हैं. So whenever any resolution is being passed in a company, सबसे पहले वो जब decision लिया जाता है, right? So वो जब decision लिया जाता है तो उसके पहले वो resolution का copy सबको जाता है, सबके पास जाता है, whoever is voting on that particular resolution. So that copy shall clearly state the details of the resolution. मतलब how many number of shares, how many sweat equity shares are being issued, what is the current market price, what is the consideration which is being taken, who are the people to whom these sweat equity shares are being issued. So all these details shall be clearly specified in the notice of that resolution or in the resolution which is being passed. And apart from it, if a listed company is issuing sweat equity shares, in addition to the provisions of Companies Act, it will also have to comply with the SEBI regulations which have been made with respect to issue of sweat equity shares. तो अगर listed company है तो सिर्फ Companies Act का compliance is not enough, Companies Act का compliance is not sufficient, it will also have to comply with the SEBI regulations. But if it is an unlisted company, so along with the provisions, Companies Act का Rule 8 जो है, it will have to comply with that. लिस्टेड कंपनी है तो कंपनीज एक्ट के प्रोविजंस एंड रूल्स के अलावा सेबी रेगुलेशंस कंप्लाई करना पड़ेगा. अनलिस्टेड कंपनी है तो रूल 8 जो है कंपनीज एक्ट का, द कंपनी विल हैव टू कंप्लाई विथ रूल 8 ऑफ द कंपनीज एक्ट. सो क्या क्या रिक्वायरमेंट देखा अभी तक हमने, क्या क्या कंडीशंस, व्हाट आर द कंडीशंस वी हैव अंडरस्टूड. सबसे फर्स्ट कंडीशन वाज स्पेशल रेजोल्यूशन. व्हाट वाज द सेकंड कंडीशन? चलो आप लोग बताओ. सबसे फर्स्ट कंडीशन वाज स्पेशल रेजोल्यूशन. देन द रेजोल्यूशन शैल स्टेट अ few points about what is the number of shares which are being issued, what is the market price, current market price of the share, what is the consideration, if any consideration is being taken. अगर फ्री में इशू कर रहा है तो फिर इसका फिर वो स्टेट करना पड़ेगा कि we are issuing shares for free. What is the consideration? फिर अलावा उसके अलावा to which director and employee the shares are being issued, इसका डिटेल देना पड़ेगा. And if it is a listed company, to follow SEBI guidelines. Unlisted company है so they'll have to follow Rule 8. Now when we talk of Rule 8, Rule 8 में क्या क्या चीजें बोली जाती हैं. Now say for example special resolution pass हो गया. The date of passing special resolution is say 1st of May. Say special resolution pass हुआ on 1st of May. Now within 12 months the issue of sweat equity share shall be completed, shall be made. The allotment of sweat equity share shall be made within 12 months from the date of passing of the special resolution. So basically the validity of the special resolution which is passed is 12 months. So 12 months का validity होता है special resolution का, और 12 months के अंदर जो allotment है शेयर्स का वो हो जाना चाहिए. So that is the first point which is being stated under rule 8 कि special resolution it will be valid for 12 months. So 12 months के अंदर जो भी sweat equity shares है उनका issue जो है that shall be completed. उनका allotment जो है हो जाना चाहिए. So it is valid for 12 months. So make sure that you are making the allotment of sweat equity shares in that time span which is being specified. Now apart from it, the other point with respect to issue of sweat equity share is that what is the limit, what is the maximum issue of sweat equity share which is allowed to a company, kitne maximum sweat equity shares company issue kar sakti. So maximum amount nahi diya hai, maximum ek percentage diya hai. The percentage specified is 15%. So the maximum sweat equity shares which can be issued by the company is 15% of the existing paid up equity share capital. So in one financial year, the company can issue sweat equity shares maximum amount which is up to 15% of the existing paid up equity share capital. And there's one more limit which we'll compare this one to, or issue value of 5 crores, whichever is higher. Now say for example, company ka paid up equity share capital is say rupees 10 crore. Okay, 10 crore is the paid up equity share capital of the company. So 15% of 10 crore kitna aega? 15% of 10 crore कितना आएगा? इतना टाइम नहीं लगना चाहिए आंसर देने में. What will be 15% of 10 crore? 10 crore rupees is the existing paid up ₹10 crore is the existing paid up equity share capital. So in order to compute the limit as to how much sweat equity, how many sweat equity shares can be issued, तो limit हमको देखना पड़ेगा पहले in one financial year 1.5 crores or 5 crores whichever is higher. So 5 crores तक का issue कर सकते हैं of sweat equity shares in this particular financial year जहाँ पे company का existing paid up equity share capital is say 10 crore rupees. So the limit which has been specified for issue of sweat equity share in one financial year is 15% of existing paid up equity share capital or 5 crores whichever is higher. So this is the limit which is specified for one financial year. एक financial year में the company can issue sweat equity shares of either 15% of the existing paid up equity share capital or 5 crores whichever is higher. इसका जो भी अमाउंट आता है उतने अमाउंट तक के स्वेट इक्विटी शेयर्स कंपनी एक साल में इशू कर सकते हैं. हाउएवर देयर इज एन ओवरऑल लिमिट एज वेल. ओवरऑल लिमिट मतलब लाइफ टाइम के लिए भी एक लिमिट है. कंपनी इन इट्स एंटायर लाइफ स्पैन, इन इट्स एंटायर लाइफ टाइम कैन इशू entire lifespan can issue sweat equity shares only up to an amount of 25% of the paid up capital of the company at any time. 25% of the paid up capital से ज़्यादा के sweat equity shares company issue नहीं कर सकती. So the issuance of sweat equity shares in a company shall not exceed 25% of paid up capital at any time. At any time मतलब during the entire lifetime of the company, the maximum amount of sweat equity shares which a company can issue shall not exceed 25% of the paid up capital of the company. 25% से ज्यादा नहीं. In 1 year, ये जो लिमिट देखा था 15% और 5 crore whichever is higher का, this was per financial year का लिमिट. However, ये जो लिमिट है 25% का, this is a blanket limit, this is the overall limit कि during the entire lifetime of the company इससे ज़्यादा company sweat equity shares issue नहीं कर सकती. However, there is an exception, and this exception is only in case of a startup company, मतलब newly incorporate हुई है company, it is a startup, and they may issue sweat equity shares of not exceeding 50% of paid up capital up to 10 years. So startup company, they can issue sweat equity shares above 25% of paid up capital, but not exceeding 50%, but that also only up to a time span of 10 years from their incorporation. So first 10 years ke liye, they can issue sweat equity shares which are more than 25% of the paid up capital, but not exceeding 50%. ये समझ में आया? Is this particular point clear? This is very, very, very important. Yeah, these limits are for unlisted companies. However, SEBI regulations अगर कुछ और specify करता है तो listed companies will apply those regulations. Is everyone clear with this? I hardly see people answering. If you do not answer to my questions, मुझे ये समझ में नहीं आएगा कि आप लोगों को कितना समझ में आ रहा है. And I'll not move ahead. And if this is the case ना, I'll do one thing. Monday को I'll come with a few questions, और उस दिन आप लोग सिर्फ questions ही solve करते रहना. And फिर मुझे actually समझ में आएगा कि how much you've actually understood. We'll do that thing on Monday. Now moving on, there's a certain lock-in period for sweat equity shares. Lock-in period मतलब क्या? अगर say for example, I have been allotted, or say you have been allotted with some sweat equity shares today. तो अभी 3 साल तक आप उन shares को कुछ नहीं कर सकते. You cannot transfer the shares for the 3 years, for the next 3 years now. So 3 साल तक आप उन shares का कुछ भी utilization नहीं कर सकते. They'll be locked in for 3 years. They'll be non-transferable for a period of time span of 3 years. So there is a lock-in period which applies to sweat equity shares, and the lock-in period is 3 years from the date of allotment. So 3 years from the date of allotment, the shares shall be non-transferable for 3 years from the date of allotment. और जैसा कि मैंने बताया था that the price at which the share is being offered to the director or employee, उसका proper valuation होगा जो एक proper registered valuer करेगा. So the price determined by a registered value as the fair price, giving justification for the valuation. So जो valuation होता है sweat equity shares का, it has to be done properly, and it has to be done by a proper registered valuer. And the valuation of intellectual property rights or know-how or value addition for which the sweat equity shares are issued shall be carried out by registered valuer. A proper report giving justification of such valuation shall also be given to the board of directors by such valuer. So जो जिसकी वजह से आप आपके director या employee को sweat equity shares issue कर रहे हो, whether it is for providing know-how or whether it is for providing intellectual property rights, whatsoever is the reason, everything shall be valued by a proper registered valuer, and a proper report giving justification of the valuation has to be submitted to the board of directors of the company. So board of directors के पास एक proper report जाएगी about the valuation. And if the sweat equity shares, they are issued for non-cash consideration, मतलब for no cash मतलब without taking anything from the director or the employee, then in that situation what will happen? So whether sweat equity shares are issued for non-cash consideration, the treatment of such non-cash consideration shall be as follows. So whether non-cash consideration is a depreciable asset presented in balance sheet in accordance with accounting standards. If it is any other item, then expensed as provided in the accounting standard. So yeah, to it will be presented in the balance sheet if the consideration is in the form of any asset. Then in that situation, it has to be presented in the balance sheet of the company as per the applicable accounting standards. And if it is any other asset, any other consideration, any other non-cash consideration, then it has to be shown as an expense as provided in the accounting standard. So basically, if the consideration is a non-cash consideration, तो accounting standards में जैसा उसका treatment दिया है, आपको उसका treatment वैसे करना पड़ेगा. And also, whenever any sweat equity shares are issued, the director's report. So director's report is an attachment to the annual return of the company. Annual return the company has to file every year with the registrar. So annual return का एक attachment होता है director's report. So in the director's report, there has to be a specific disclosure that the company has issued sweat equity shares of so and so amount. So details of issue of sweat equity shares shall be clearly stated in the director's report of the company. And a register of sweat equity shares in form ACH3 at the registered office of the company shall be maintained by the company. So एक register maintain करना पड़ेगा which specifies that what are the sweat equity shares which are issued by the company. Form जो है specified उसका form SH3 है. Did I tell you that all the forms in the company are actually named, or the nomenclature of forms of the company basically comes from the type of forms. Basically, if it is incorporation form, तो INC से start होगा. चार्जेस से रिलेटेड फॉर्म है तो CHG से स्टार्ट होगा फॉर्म का नंबर और या नेम. इफ इट इज रिलेटेड टू शेयर्स तो SH से स्टार्ट होगा. सो देर आर डिफरेंट फॉर्म्स, बहुत सारे फॉर्म्स होते हैं कंपनी के जो फाइल होते हैं. तो द नोमेनक्लेचर व्हिच इज बीन गिवन टू द फॉर्म्स ना, इट इज बेसिकली डिपेंडेंट ऑन व्हिच टाइप ऑफ फॉर्म इट इज. अगर प्रोस्पेक्टस इन अलॉटमेंट से रिलेटेड फॉर्म है तो द नेम ऑफ द फॉर्म स्टार्ट्स विद PAS. सो अलग अलग फॉर्म्स है and alag-alag forms ke nomenclature are also this way. Now, why did I give this piece of information to you? One simple reason, कहीं कहीं आपको फॉर्म्स के नाम लिखने पड़ते हैं या कहीं कहीं आपको MCQs में फॉर्म के नाम का भी पूछ लिया. So if you know कि हाँ this form is related to this particular thing, this form is related to shares, or this form is related to creation of charges, or no this form is related to incorporation, तो it would be easier for you to identify कि कौन सा form होगा. So this was just an additional piece of information for you all. See, whenever you're studying a particular act या law, जब भी आप कुछ पढ़ रहे हो, उसके basics, उसके logics आप सबको पता होने चाहिए. Different things, how practically things happen, you all should know of those practical things, practical aspects as well. And Companies Act में ऐसी बहुत सारी practical चीजें हैं जो आप लोगों को पता होनी चाहिए, because this is the most relevant act which you are studying, जिस पे काम भी बहुत सारा आप आगे जाके करो. So this was just a piece of information for you to know about things. And sweat equity shares, they'll be ranked pari passu, matlab they'll have equal ranking as of normal equity shareholders. Just because they've been issued at a discount, इसका मतलब ये नहीं कि sweat equity shareholders के पास कम right रहेगा than the normal equity shareholders. They'll have equal ranking. Pari passu means equal ranking. So the holder of sweat equity share will have an equal ranking as that of an equity shareholder as that of a normal equity shareholders. उसको ये नहीं बोला जाएगा कि नहीं नहीं आपको तो shares discount पे issue किए तो आपके पास कम right है, हमारे पास ज्यादा right है, ऐसा कुछ नहीं होगा. Equity shares ही है दोनों, and they'll have equal ranking. So which is being specified under section 54 subsection 2. Okay. So with this, we have now understood what sweat equity shares are and conditions and provisions related to sweat equity shares. Before I move ahead with section 55, any doubts, any confusions in whatever we've done till now? अभी तक जो भी समझा, अभी तक जो भी चीजें डिस्कस की, उसमें आप लोगों को कोई डाउट है, कोई कंफ्यूजन है, एनीथिंग? Because once I start with preference shares, it will take time and I'll not be able to take up any doubts in between. So if you have any doubts, any confusions, let me know right now. नॉन कैश कंसिडरेशन कुड बी ईदर इशूड फॉर फ्री, या फिर कुछ असेट उनको अलॉट कर दिया, या फिर इन कंसिडरेशन अदर देन कैश, कैश के अलावा कुछ और उनको अलॉट कर दिया, वैसे कोई डेप्रिशिएबल असेट दे दिया उनको, या फिर कुछ और चीज दे दी उनको, वैसा कुछ हो सकता है. और इट कुड ईदर बी इशूड फॉर फ्री एज वेल. Not asset contributed by employee, giving a right in the asset to the employee. Anything else? Any other question? Also, I've noticed that a few of you joined late for the class. So let me make it very clear that the class starts at 2 o'clock, and we are very punctual with the timings. So make sure that you join on time so that we do not have to wait in for people to join for 5 to 10 minutes and waste time of those people who have actually joined on time. And क्या होता है ना, आप अगर बीच में से ज्वाइन करते हो तो कॉन्सेप्ट आपको भी क्लियरली नहीं समझ में आता है, and then there would be a few disturbances as well in the class. So it's always advisable that you join the class on the time which has been specified. So I see no other questions. So let's start with preference shares, section 55, which talks of preference shares. So अभी तक हम equity shares के बारे में discuss कर रहे थे, normal shares के बारे में discuss कर रहे थे, basically issue of shares at premium, issue of shares at discount, और sweat equity shares के बारे में discuss कर रहे थे. Now section 55 जो है वो completely preference shares से ही deal करता है. Section 55 जो है वो completely preference share से deal करता है, and section 55 basically talks of two things. One is issue of preference shares, and the second is redemption of preference shares. What do you understand by these two terms, issue and redemption? Issue का मतलब क्या होता है और redemption का मतलब क्या होता है? Issuing means raising capital. Okay, हाँ, correct. And what is redemption? It is repayment. Redemption is not buying back. Buying back is a completely different concept. In redemption, you're not buying your preference shares, you're rather making the payment to them, you're repaying it to them. Correct. So when we talk of issue में हम क्या कर रहे हैं? Shares actually issue कर रहे हैं. We are allotting shares, we are raising money from people. And preference shares, as we all know, shareholders ने पैसा लगाया है तो उनको पैसा तो वापस देना पड़ेगा, तो redemption तो उनका करना ही पड़ेगा. We'll have to redeem the shares which we have allotted to the shareholders of the company, whether it is preference shareholders or whether it is equity shareholders. हाँ, equity shareholders के पास ये redemption एकदम end में होता है because they are the last ones to receive payment. But when we talk of redemption of preference shares, so preference shareholders के पास ये redemption का right होता है, and what is the maximum time limit जिसका preference shares issue किया करते हैं, let's understand. So सबसे पहले तो there are different types of preference shares. Just let's have a look at the different types of preference shares. So preference shares are divided into different types: cumulative preference shares, non-cumulative preference shares, participative, non-participative preference shares, redeemable, irredeemable. However, Companies Act जो है irredeemable preference shares इशू करने का राइट नहीं देता. There is a prohibition, there is a restriction on issue of irredeemable preference shares. So on the basis of dividend payout, it is cumulative or non-cumulative. Cumulative मतलब क्या? जहाँ पे dividend का accumulation होता रहता है year on year, every year. Say if the company fails to pay dividend in 1 year, so in the next year when the company is paying dividend, ये साल का dividend भी pay किया जाएगा in this year. So both the years dividend will be paid here. However, अगर non-cumulative है, so there will be no accumulation of dividend in that situation. In that case, if it is a non-cumulative preference shares, there wouldn't be any accumulation of dividend. Now talking of participatory and non-participatory. Participatory, non-participatory basically means kabhi-kabhi they have a right to participate in the extra profits या फिर in the voting rights of the company, और kabhi-kabhi they do not have a part. And then there are convertible and non-convertible. Convertible basically means which can be converted into equity shares. Non-convertible which are not convertible. Redeemable मतलब जिनका payout होगा. Irredeemable मतलब they'll not be paid after expiry of the time span, but rather they'll be paid only and only at the time of redemption. So जब हम बात करते हैं redeemable या irredeemable, when we say preference shares are redeemable in nature, उसका मतलब क्या होता है? It means they are to be redeemed after expiry of a certain time span. ठीक है? So when we say preference shares are redeemable in nature, they are to be redeemed after expiry of certain time span. But जब हम irredeemable की बात करते हैं, when we say preference shares are irredeemable in nature, इसका मतलब ये है, it is not that they'll not be redeemed. They will be redeemed, but कब? जब कंपनी का एक्चुअल वाइंडिंग अप का टाइम आएगा तब. कंपनी एक्चुअली जब वाइंड अप होगी तब उनका रिडेम्पशन होगा. नॉट आफ्टर अ पर्टिकुलर टाइम स्पैन, बट रादर ओनली जब कंपनी का एक्चुअल वाइंडिंग अप का टाइम आएगा तब उनका रिडेम्पशन होगा. ठीक है? But however, issue of irredeemable preference share is prohibited or restricted. It is prohibited or restricted by the Companies Act 2013. So section 55 में clearly stated है that a company limited by shares shall issue only redeemable preference shares. They cannot issue irredeemable preference shares. Issue of irredeemable preference shares is not allowed. Okay. Now yesterday we've clearly understood कि preference shares को preference shares क्यों बोला जाता है and what are the different preferential rights which the preference shareholders get. So let's now have a look at what are the different conditions for issue of preference shares. So सबसे पहले the condition is it should be authorized by a special resolution which is passed in the general meeting of the company. So the issue of preference shares shall be authorized by a special resolution. Special resolution क्या? 3/4 या 75% members shall give their consent. Then company should not have subsisting default in redemption of preference shares issued earlier or in payment of dividend on those preference shares. So subsisting default मतलब existing default, मतलब पहले कंपनी ने ना कोई preference shares already issue किए हुए हैं, but अभी तक उनका भी redemption नहीं हुआ है. So there shouldn't be any default which the company has made on redemption of preference shares which were issued earlier, या फिर on payment of dividend on the preference shares which were issued earlier. So there shouldn't be any existing default or subsisting default either on redemption of preference shares or in payment of dividend. And the register of members, it shall contain the details of the preference shareholders as well. It shall contain the particulars with respect to the preference shareholders as well. अभी जब बात करते हैं about redemption, when we talk of redemption of preference shares, only fully paid up preference shares can be redeemed. Only and only fully paid up preference shares can be redeemed. Say for example, I have 10 preference shares of the company. The face value of each share is ₹100. Okay, I have 10 preference shares. Face value of each share is ₹100. However, I have paid only ₹80 on these preference shares. इसका मतलब क्या, ये shares जो है ये partly paid up है, fully paid up नहीं है. Now, company को preference shares का redemption करना है. Do you think the company will redeem me the amount on the preference shares? Company मुझे redeem करके देगी preference shares. Will the company pay back the amount to me? Definitely not. Why is that so? Because my shares are not fully paid, they are partly paid. मेरे shares fully paid है ही नहीं, और redemption सिर्फ fully paid shares का होगा, partly paid shares का redemption नहीं होगा. And since my shares are partly paid, the company will not redeem the amount to me. Now let's talk of the time span of redemption. So maximum time span जो होता है प्रेफरेंस शेयर्स के रिडेम्पशन का, दैट इज 20 years. मतलब 20 years तक के प्रेफरेंस शेयर्स कंपनी इशू कर सकती है which are redeemable after 20 years. The maximum time span which is allowed is 20 years. However, there's an exception, and that exception is in case of any infrastructure project. So the टाइम पीरियड विद इन विच द प्रेफरेंस शेयर्स आर टू बी रिडीम, मैक्सिमम टाइम स्पैन जो है वो 20 years का है, या फिर एनीथिंग विच इज स्पेसिफाइड इन द आर्टिकल्स ऑफ एसोसिएशन. अगर say company has issued preference shares of 5 years, no problem. The maximum time span cannot exceed 20 years. So 20 years or the time span which is specified in the articles, whichever is less, will be the time span जिसके लिए company preference shares issue कर सकती है. So 20 years maximum time span है. Company can issue preference shares which are redeemable after 10 years. Company can also issue preference shares which are redeemable after 15 years. There is no problem with that. However, अगर infrastructure projects है, so the maximum time span can be up to 30 years. ठीक है, अगर infrastructure project से related है, तो the maximum time span can be up to 30 years. Now, say for example, you are purchasing preference shares in a company जो infrastructure project से related है, और जो redemption का time span है वो है 30 years. मतलब 30 years के बाद आपको repayment किया जाएगा. However, you say not 30 years is a very long time span. मैं आज invest करूँ और मुझे 30 साल बाद return मिलेगा पैसा. It is a very long time span. It is a very huge time span. So क्या ऐसा हो सकता है कि मुझे थोड़ा थोड़ा पैसा हर साल मिल सके? So इसमें yes, ऐसा कुछ provision किया जा सकता है. Now वो provision क्या है? वो ये है कि 21st year से, from the beginning of the 21st year, every year there will be a repayment of 10% amount. हर साल 10% का repayment होगा, तो which means till the time the 30th year comes, पूरा 100% repayment हो जाएगा. So starting 21st year, if this type of preference shares are issued जो infrastructure projects के लिए है and maximum 30 years के लिए, तो there can be a provision therein wherein from the beginning of the 21st year every year 10% का repayment होगा. Every year there would be a repayment of 10%, which will ultimately lead to the entire preference share capital being repaid up to 30th year. Now say for example, मेरे पास 60 lakhs worth of preference shares थे which were redeemable after 30 years. Now जैसे ही 21st year start होता है, तो 10% of 60 lakh which comes to 6 lakhs. So every year I'll be receiving 6 lakh, 6 lakh, 6 lakh up to 30th year, which means 30th year आने तक from 21st year to 30th year there'll be 10 years. So till the time till 30th year starts, मेरा जो entire capital था वो मेरे पास वापस से आ गया, entire repayment जो है वो हो गया, and I did not have to wait for entire 30 years to get over to receive the amount which I invested. So अगर ये 30 years का time span है, तो उस situation में ऐसा एक arrangement किया जा सकता है wherein beginning 21st year the repayment starts. Now say my company, it has issued preference shares with respect to infrastructure project. However, the time period for redemption is 25 years. मैक्सिमम टाइम तो 30 इयर्स है, तो उसे कम भी रख सकते हैं. टाइम पीरियड फॉर रिडेम्पशन इज 25 years. Now you tell me कौन से साल से, from which year the proportionate payment would start. 10% का पेमेंट कौन से ईयर से स्टार्ट होगा कि 25th ईयर में द एंटायर अमाउंट इज पेड.
Ma'am, 15th.
15th नहीं, it will be 16th. So if
Yes,
you
ma'am.
take 15th year,
16th.
it will be 11 years.
Yes, ma'am.
It will be 15th. Sorry, it will be 16th. अगर 28 years है तो if the time span is 28 years, then from which year? From 19th year the repayment would start. तो वैसे ही proportionately जो repayment है 10% का, वो proportionate basis पे होगा. So the maximum time span is 20 years. However, for infrastructure projects, preference shares can be issued for a period not exceeding 30 years, exceeding 20 years, but not exceeding 30 years, subject to the redemption of 10% of such preference shares beginning in 21st year onwards or earlier. पहले से भी start हो सकता है. It is not that पहले से start नहीं हो सकता. Earlier on a proportionate basis at the option of such preference shareholder. Proportionate basis मतलब ये जो 25th year का 16th year देखा, 28th year का 19th year देखा, just talking about that. So in general cases, the time span for redemption is 20 years. However, if it is related to an infrastructure project, those situation में the maximum time span for redemption can be 30 years and subject to an arrangement wherein the redemption would be made 10% redemption every year would be made beginning from the 21st year. ये point सबको समझ में आया? Are you all clear with this particular point? Yes. Now let's talk of what would be the sources of redemption. मतलब कौन सा पैसा यूज करके आप प्रेफरेंस शेयर्स को रिडीम कर सकते हो. There are two sources of redemption. सबसे पहला तो फ्री रिजर्व्स या फिर rather the profits of the company. Capital redemption reserve cannot be utilized for redemption of preference shares. Capital redemption reserve can be utilized only and only for the purpose of issue of fully paid bonus shares and no other purpose. So सबसे पहला जो source है for redemption of preference shares is the free reserves of the company. So this includes the general reserve, P&L account का जो balance होता है in the reserves and surplus वाला heading. So जो भी free reserves होते हैं company के, वो सारे आप use कर सकते हो for the purposes of redemption of preference shares. या फिर से आप fresh issue करो, proceeds of fresh issue. मतलब you issue a few more preference shares. Say for example, the company had to redeem preference shares worth ₹1 crore. अभी company के पास company had to redeem preference shares worth ₹1 crore, but company did not have sufficient funds in its general reserve or P&L account. मतलब free reserves का total करके say for example company के पास था 50 lakh rupees. भी कंपनी को और 50 लाख रुपए की जरूरत है to redeem the entire amount of 1 crore. So कंपनी क्या करता है, 50 लाख का फ्रेश इशू करते हैं. फ्रेश इशू कैन बी ईदर ऑफ इक्विटी शेयर्स और प्रेफरेंस शेयर्स. ऐसा नेसेसरी नहीं है कि इक्विटी शेयर प्रेफरेंस शेयर्स को रिडीम करना है तो प्रेफरेंस शेयर्स का ही फ्रेश इशू करेगी. Not required. It can either be a fresh issue of equity shares or preference shares. So whenever a company is making fresh issue, what happens? Company will receive some money. Now that money can be utilized by the company to pay off this preference share capital. So 50% is being utilized from the free reserves and 50% fresh issue से हो रहा है. Entirely free reserve से हो सकता है, entirely fresh issue से हो सकता है. There can be any means. So there are two sources of redemption of preference share capital. One is from free reserves, the other is via fresh issue. So the first preference shares can be redeemed only out of profits of the company which would be available for dividend. So मैंने free reserves के नीचे इसलिए लिखा है that the profits of the company which can be utilized for the purpose of payment of dividend, या फिर proceeds of fresh issue of shares which is made for the purposes of such redemption. Fresh issue of shares है तो this can either be fresh issue of equity shares or preference shares. It is not necessary that अगर preference shares का redemption करना है तो preference shares ही issue करना पड़ेगा, ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. Proceeds of fresh issue of shares. Now this fresh issue can either be a fresh issue of equity shares or a fresh issue of preference shares. Clear है? ये समझ में आया sources of redemption? Yes. So let's now talk about the capital redemption reserve. अभी capital redemption reserve कब create होगा? Let's understand. So I'm sure आप लोगों ने accounts में entries pass की होगी तब CRR create किया होगा. Do you remember something called as CRR? Yes or no? Might have come across this. नहीं cash reserve ratio की बात नहीं कर रही हूँ. I'm talking of capital redemption reserve here. Not talking of cash reserve ratio. हाँ, P&L account debit to CRR. That is correct. I'm not talking about the journal entry, but you might have come across this word CRR, right? So why do you think CRR is created? What is the requirement? Why is this account or this separate reserve created?
Ma'am, out of divisible profits, we are keeping some sum of money aside in that reserve, ma'am, for redemption.
Okay. So right, CRR is basically whenever a company is utilizing say profits. अगर कंपनी रिडेम्पशन फ्रेश इशू से कर रहा है ना तो उस सिचुएशन में CRR क्रिएट नहीं होगा. CRR will be created only when the company is a company is redeeming preference shares out of profits of the company. Profits में से अगर कंपनी प्रेफरेंस शेयर्स को रिडीम कर रही है तो उस सिचुएशन में एक अकाउंट उनको क्रिएट करना पड़ेगा एंड दैट इज अ कैपिटल रिडेम्पशन रिजर्व अकाउंट. So where the preference shares are to be redeemed out of profits of the company. So out of such profits, a sum equal to the nominal amount of shares to be redeemed. मतलब जितने भी amount का shares आप profit में से redeem कर रहे हो, उतना amount has to be transferred to a separate reserve, which is called as a capital redemption reserve. So if you are if you are issuing sorry, if you are redeeming preference shares out of any fresh issue, तो उस सिचुएशन में CRR क्रिएट नहीं होगा. You will not create a capital redemption reserve in that situation. But whenever you are redeeming preference shares out of profits, तो उस situation में capital redemption reserve has to be created. CRR will be created, and CRR कितने amount का होगा? Say in our example we had understood 50 lakhs was being redeemed out of profits. So 50 lakhs का CRR create होगा. समझ में आया ये particular thing? So whenever when will the company create CRR? When will CRR be created? Yeah, this is created only when preference shares are redeemed. Debentures के redemption के time पे भी create होता है, वो तब वहाँ debentures में जब जाएंगे तब देखेंगे. But अभी since we are talking of redemption of preference shares, let's understand that. And the purpose for which CRR can be utilized, there's only one purpose for which CRR can be utilized, and that is for issue of fully paid bonus shares. उसके अलावा CRR किसी भी चीज के लिए utilize नहीं किया जा सकता. That is the only purpose for which CRR can be utilized. हाँ, it is in a similar way. ठीक है. Now in some situations the shares would be redeemed at premium. मतलब आप एडिशनल अमाउंट पे कर रहे हो शेयर्स को जब आप रिडीम कर रहे हो तो आप प्रीमियम पे रिडेम्पशन कर रहे हो. So in case of such class of company as may be prescribed and whose financial statements comply with the accounting standards, premium, if any, payable on redemption shall be provided out of the profits of the company before the shares are redeemed. So जब भी premium की बात करते हैं, premium has to be provided for from the profits of the company. Profits of the company में से ही premium amount जो है वो pay किया जाएगा company को. In case of redemption of preference shares issued on or before the commencement of this act. Commencement of this act basically means commencement of Companies Act 2013. So situation mein premium has to be provided out of the profits of the company or out of the securities premium account before the shares are redeemed. However, in case it does not meet the above criteria, तो situation में it shall be provided for out of the profits of the company or out of company's security premium account. So this basically talks of two situations. ये जो companies who are prescribed and whose financial statement comply with the accounting standards, those type of companies, they can redeem they can provide for premium out of profits. However, जो दूसरे companies है वो लोग premium provide कर सकते either out of profits या फिर या फिर securities premium account. Now if you remember when we were doing section 52, वहां पे हमने समझा है दो classifications थे companies का. एक था 133 को comply करने वाला company और एक था other companies. The other companies could utilize the amount in securities premium account for 5 purposes. However, ये वाले companies जो थे वो सिर्फ 3 purposes के लिए amount utilize कर सकते थे. So ये 3 purposes में the purpose that was redemption of preference shares, premium on redemption, वो यहाँ पे नहीं था, but यहाँ पे था. So that is what these points are talking of. So if it is a company which complies with accounting standards under 133 which has been prescribed, so they'll provide for premium out of profits. But अगर दूसरी company है, they'll provide for premium either out of profits or out of the securities premium account. अभी कभी कभी क्या होता है, कंपनी डज नॉट हैव फंड्स, से कंपनी के पास फंड्स नहीं है फॉर रिडेम्पशन, और कंपनी के पास प्रॉपर कैश नहीं है या प्रॉफिट्स नहीं है फॉर द पर्पज ऑफ रिडेम्पशन ऑफ शेयर्स। तो उस सिचुएशन में क्या होगा? Yes, correctly stated, fresh issue. So say I have to redeem, there's a company which has to redeem preference shares worth 1 crore rupees. However, the company does not have sufficient funds. So company क्या करती है, 1 crore के fresh preference shares issue करती है. Now, in this particular situation, this fresh issue or this further issue of redeemable preference shares, it will be deemed to be as redemption of the preference shares. Matlab kya? This is a deemed redemption which is happening. There's no actual redemption, there's no actual repayment which is being made, but rather a fresh issue is being made, and that fresh issue of shares will be deemed to be redemption of the preference shares. And kitne amount ka? Equal to the amount of preference shares plus if there's any dividend payable on those preference shares, utne pure amount ka fresh issue या further issue company करेगी. However, before making such fresh issue or before making such further issue, the company will have to comply with certain conditions. So what are the conditions for deemed redemption? Let's understand. So where a company is not in a position to redeem any preference shares or to pay dividend on such shares, it may issue further redeemable preference shares which are equal to the amount due, including the dividend. So हमारे example में 1 crore was the amount due on redemption. So 1 crore का fresh issue कर सकती है. The company can do a fresh issue of 1 crore. Now say अभी वो 1 crore पे there was a dividend payable of say rupees 10 lakhs. So उस सिचुएशन में 1 crore 10 lakhs का fresh issue करेगी कंपनी, because dividend का amount जो है that amount will also be included. If the preference shares were redeemable at premium, तो उस situation में premium का amount would be included, but not other ways. पार का अमाउंट ही इंक्लूड होगा, प्रीमियम का अमाउंट नहीं. And on such further issue, जब further issue company करेगा, it will be deemed to be a redemption of the preference shares which were not redeemed earlier. What are the conditions? Consent of holders of 3/4 in value of such preference shares. So जैसे हमारा था example में 1 crore preference shares, so कम से कम 75 lakh के holders जो है, they holders holding value of 75 lakhs, at least 75 lakhs, they should give their consent. Approval has to be obtained from the tribunal, and tribunal may pass order to redeem shares of dissenting shareholders. Now say approval of 3/4 is required. 1 crore में से minimum 75 lakh के holders का approval चाहिए. Say 80 lakh के holders ने approval दिया है. However, holder of 25 lakhs worth of preference share, they do not give their approval. They say, no, we do not want preference shares. We want our money back. So in that situation, the tribunal will say कि ये जो लोग भी बोल रहे हैं ना हमको हमारा पैसा वापस चाहिए, आप उनको उनका पैसा वापस दो. So the redemption has to be done of the for the shares of the dissenting shareholders. Dissenting मतलब the shareholders who have not given their approval. Okay, so the shareholders who have not given their consent, the tribunal will pass an order to redeem the shares of those dissenting shareholders. ये point समझ में आया? Is this clear? Any questions, any doubts?
Ma'am?
Yeah.
Like you told, no ma'am, we can issue further redeemable preference shares if we cannot redeem, no ma'am. But after passing the special resolution only, we should take the approval of tribunal, ma'am.
Yeah, you will first have to obtain the consent of all these preference shareholders first, that we will not pay you money, but we will issue fresh preference shares to you. And after these preference shareholders, they give their consent, you will have to apply to the tribunal. Both the approvals are simultaneously required.
Okay, ma'am. As special resolution will be passed, why the approval of tribunal is required?
Because this is something unusual. Na? You cannot issue shares in lieu of redemption. This is not something which happens very commonly, or this is not something which happens usually. This is something which is
Okay.
unusual, and that is the reason why approval of tribunal is required.
Okay, this is an unusual situation, so we should take the
This is
approval of
not
tribunal.
something which will normally be done. See, if
Yes,
you
ma'am.
have purchased shares in a company, and at the time of redemption, company says कि हम आपको पैसा नहीं देंगे, will give you fresh shares. It is not
Hmm.
necessary that you would want fresh shares. You would say, no, I want my money back.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
that's the reason why the thing goes to tribunal, so that the dissenting shareholders, they also get the right to redemption. मतलब people who are not agreeing to it, so tribunal will pass an order, and tribunal के order के basis पे the company will redeem the amount to the dissenting shareholders.
Yes, ma'am. Understood. And ma'am, here they told like transfer to CRR. You told no, ma'am. Like it may be applied for issue of bonus shares or redemption of preference
Oh
shares,
no, it
ma'am.
can be applied only and only for issue of fully paid bonus shares and no other purpose.
No, ma'am. For redemption of preference shares.
No, it cannot be utilized for redemption of preferences. CRR is utilized for only one purpose, and that is issue of fully paid bonus shares and no other purpose.
Okay, ma'am. Then, ma'am, here in one sentence they're telling that once I will read, ma'am.
Yeah.
They're telling that sum equal to nominal amount, okay, transferred to CRR, and the provisions of this act relating to reduction of share capital of company shall accept as provided in this section apply as if CRR account were paid up share capital of the company. What is the meaning of this?
There's a lot which you have told. Matlab, could you repeat the last line again?
Yes, ma'am. And the provisions of this act relating to reduction of share capital of company shall accept as provided in this section apply as if the CRR account were paid up share capital of the company.
Basically, it basically says that whenever you're creating CRR is basically utilized only for the purpose of issue of fully paid bonus shares, and whenever you're creating CRR, it is as good as some paid up capital of the company which has been created. वो वही बोल रहे हैं in short.
Yes, ma'am, but it will increase the
It will
share
not
capital,
increase the
ma'am.
capital of the company. CRR will be a part of your reserves and surplus in the balance sheet. So
No,
when
ma'am.
you are
Like,
issuing bonus shares, CRR में से amount निकलेगा और आपके share capital में add हो जाएगा.
okay, they're telling about the CRR, so
Yeah,
it will reduce the share capital.
it will not reduce the share capital. See, CRR is created out of the profits of the company. मतलब ये free reserves, general reserves जो है आपके, from that the CRR is created, and CRR will be created only and only when you're redeeming shares out of profits. So when you're redeeming shares out of profits, you will create a capital redemption reserve because you've utilized your profits for creation of for redemption of your preference shares. So वहां पे जब आप ये reserve create कर रहे हो, the amount which you will transfer in this reserve would be basically the amount nominal value of preference shares which you've redeemed. अभी ये जो reserve है, it has been created. Now how are you going to utilize this reserve? So this reserve can be utilized only for one purpose, and that is for issue of fully paid bonus shares. Now when you issuing of bonus shares is nothing but capitalization of profits of the company. So CRR में जो amount होगा, say CRR में amount है अभी 10 lakhs का, and share capital is your 50 lakhs right now. Now if you're issuing fully paid bonus shares, so CRR का amount 10 lakhs का वो चला जाएगा, and share capital will now be 60 lakhs if you're utilizing the entire CRR.
Yes, ma'am, understood.
Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Any other question, anyone? Any other doubts? Any other question? Before you start leaving, there's an announcement I have to make. Tomorrow we do not have a class. we'll have class on Monday. Sunday है कल आप, तो Sunday आप लोग भी enjoy करो, Sunday मैं भी enjoy करूँगी. So tomorrow we do not have class. We'll start with section 56 from Monday. Probably by Tuesday we'll be in a position to finish the chapter. Tuesday maximum would be Wednesday when we'll finish the chapter. And if you have any friends of yours who would be interested in joining in, who would be interested in taking the benefit of these free classes, let your friends know. And also if you want to register for the classes, you can do so. Don't worry about the previous 3 chapters. It is only 3 chapters. Just my first wala sab basics wala tha, and we have backup of everything. Accounting entries for CRR and redemption of preference shares. This is a question which I was going to ask all of you in the next class, but since you have asked me accounting entries, मैं पहले आपसे पूछूंगी, आपको क्या लगता है CRR का accounting entry क्या होना चाहिए, या फिर redemption of preference shares का accounting entry क्या होना चाहिए? Just break the thing into parts and try and write the entry. फिर मैं बताती हूँ. प्रेफरेंस शेयर्स रिडीम हो रहा है, तो आपका प्रेफरेंस शेयर कैपिटल कम होगा, तो एंट्री क्या होगी?
Mom, for creating it, you have to do like penal account debit to CRR. Mom, I'm clear with that. For redeeming the preference share capital, you have to debit the preference share capital. So on the credit, what would come? Like
you will pay the amount to the preference shareholders ना. आपका बैंक में से पैसा जाएगा. If you are paying it out of your profits, तो आपका profits कम होगा, preference shareholders को पैसा जाएगा. So there'll be basically अलग-अलग stages of your entries, right?
okay, mom.
Any other question? There's someone who is given the entry. अच्छा, वो मुझे direct message आया इसलिए. हाँ, preference shareholders will be correct. फिर उसके बाद when you actually pay them the amount, उसके बाद क्या आएगा? When you message me directly, the other people in the meeting, they'll not be able to see your answer. So it is okay even if you send the message to everyone in the meeting. It is completely fine. I know you all are very particular about कि किसी ने मेरा question पढ़ लिया तो क्या सोचेंगे दूसरे लोग. So do not worry of what anyone else is going to think. Correct. Any other question, anyone? So I was saying remaining 2 days and very important concepts coming up in the other 2 classes. Important concepts being transfer of shares. Also, we'll talk of alteration of share capital. Alteration is very important part when we talk of alteration. Alteration बहुत ज़्यादा important है. Transfer of shares is something which we are going to start with in the next class, section 56. Then we'll talk of alteration of share capital. Uske baad we'll also discuss about buyback. And last class hoga, either Tuesday or Wednesday, whenever it is. In that class, we are going to discuss about debentures and related provisions of debentures. So if there's someone who would want to join in, do let them know so that they can join in. And it is completely fine if they start with section 56 as well. कोई problem नहीं है. Section 56 से भी अगर वो join करते हैं, they'll understand things because it is something which can be understood, and we'll do a basic recap जैसे आज थोड़ा बहुत किया वैसे. So any other questions? And you all can also join in to the entire batch, even if your attempt is in November 22. Do not worry, we'll finish the syllabus by mid-September, and you will be in a good position to prepare for your examinations. Any questions about the class or about any doubt which you have? How to register? Okay, just give me a minute. So you can visit our website, and वहाँ से आप register कर सकते हो for the class. I'll just share my screen and show it to you. Okay, there's some problem with my network. So you can go to our website andikulearn.com, and वहाँ पे you can buy courses. Buy courses में CA Inter, Hindi plus English live classes. वहाँ पे जाके आप register कर सकते हो. You can enroll for the classes. Do not worry, backup available है of the previous classes as well, and all the classes are being recorded. You will be provided with study material therein, and also you will have a lot of MCQs for your practice, which are available on our website as well as on our app. Any other questions, anyone?
Mom, will we get the material to you, which you're displaying it now, Mom, like for the first chapter?
You can ask me if you have any questions right now.
Mom,
And
will you be able to receive the material of chapter 4, Mom, like what you're discussing now?
sorry, I missed what you were saying. Yes.
Like, will you be able to get the material of what you just showing now, Mom, like for the whole chapter?
For the fourth chapter, yes, you will receive the material. So you have the link for enrolling here in the chat box. If any one of you wants to enroll, you can go to that link and enroll for the classes. ये chapter का material भी आपको मिलेगा.
In the website, I could find only consigns to notes of this, Mom. Like I couldn't find a detailed one of it.
Sorry, I didn't get you. Sorry, could you repeat?
Actually, in Indigo website, I could find only consigns to note of chapter 4 and for every chapter, Mom. I'm in need of the material for just showing it now. Like which one you?
Okay. I'll let you know of where you can access the material.
Okay, Mom.
Any other question? So you will be able to access the material under free resources by the end of the day. Let me just show you if I'm able to. Give me a minute. Yeah, so I hope you all are able to see my screen. So यहाँ पे under free resources, so you'll be able to access the material. Free resources में under this section notes. By the end of the day, you will be able to access the material. ठीक है? Any other concern? Any other question? Anyone? Yeah, by the end of the day, you will be able to access the notes which we are showing you here. Those are concise ones, but we'll upload the notes which we are using here by the end of the day. Okay. Any other concern or any other question, anyone? We are here for 2 more minutes. Let me know. Also, the notes which we are providing will be available only for chapter 4 and not for every chapter. If you enroll for the classes, you will get the detailed notes of every chapter as well. So by the end of the day, you will get the notes of chapter 4 under free resources. However, for other chapters नहीं मिलेगा. Chapter 4 का मिल जाएगा. जो chapter हम कर रहे हैं अभी उसका मिल जाएगा आपको. Okay then. So I see no other questions. Let's conclude the session. Thank you and have a great Sunday. See you all on Monday. Monday को आओगे तो थोड़ा revise करके आना. We'll also have a look at some questions. We'll just brush up through a few questions and brush up through a few important concepts. And then we'll start with section 56 and very interesting things coming up in the next 2 classes, because we are going to talk of transfer, transmission, and also alteration of share capital, which is going to be very interesting. So do not miss any class, and also do let your friends know about it. Okay, have a great Sunday. Thank you everyone.